Okay, picking up where we left off on page 111, we were talking about servers, and rack-mounted servers is probably the most common. There are different kinds. There's a type that's called a blade server. It's not quite so popular nowadays, where you have a case and the actual computers fit like cards into these cases, and the idea is that you could increase computing power by just adding more of these guys. Okay. Talking about rack computers one more time. If you've ever dealt with server racks, you probably have heard the term, that's a 3U or a 2U rack, maybe, kind of, maybe, almost. And there's a thing called a rack unit. And so this is what the spacing of these racks look like. And let me tell you, if you've never run across one of these things, it's very strange. The holes are in groups. So they have 3 holes that are 5/8 of an inch apart. And then they have a hole that's 1/2 inch apart. And then 5/8, 5/8 and a half, 5/8, 5/8 and a half. And so if this is your first day to install the rack, the computer in the rack, and so you just find a spot and you put the first screw in there, and then you go put the next screw and you go, dang, this thing don't fit. Well, you got it in the wrong hole. It's crazy, I know. So a 1U is the space between these 3 holes. So it overlaps, so it's 1.75 inches, and then a U2 would be twice that, and a U3 would be 3 times that, and a U4 would be, 4 times that. So this rack unit. So if you're ever buying a server and they talk about, well, this is a 3U server, well, you know physically how much space that's going to fit into your rack. Cool. All right. Let's talk about the types of servers that are out there. I was in a corporate environment, and we had lots and lots of physical servers that served specific tasks. We had application server. Its sole life in the world was to provide an opportunity for our line of business applications to run. We had a database server. Its sole purpose in life was just to run, in our case, Microsoft SQL Server. And we had a gazillion databases. We had a specialized domain name server where all our accounts, so it's basically your login accounts, that's where they get stored. We had a file server, which was just shared storage for all the people to go in and drop files or pick files up. We had an email server, one that was specifically designed to run Microsoft Exchange. We had web server, a machine that was specifically designed to just do things for web presence. And a lot of reasons why they have several physical machines that are not all crammed together is you want to physically separate some of these things. For example, in the corporate world, your file server is probably not going to be connected to the exact same network as your web server, because your web server is pointing out to the outside world, and your file server is only for you, and it's pointing to the inside world. And so there may be a significant difference between how this server is configured versus that server is being configured. And so this cool little table here talks about, backup, and database, and domain, and file transfers, and game, and home, and list, lots and lots and lots of stuff. Okay, so these are the different types of servers, and often they would either be separate physical devices, or you could have virtual machines, and we'll discuss that in some future video. Now, if you're a small business, like you only got like 10 employees, you might have one physical machine that serves all these roles. So one physical server that's running print services, application, domain, boom, 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 right on down the line. It does it all because you only got 10 employees. You're only in a 2,000 square foot office someplace. You really don't need everything to be separate. That would be way, way too expensive for you. Okay, so it's really just a matter of taste. Okay, so on page 113, they talk about supercomputers. Dun, dun, dun. And basically, it's just the bigger, the faster. They use very specialized servers for a specific task. You would not use a supercomputer for any of the tasks here. Okay, those are kind of boring and mundane tasks, but they're not, doing climate studies and doing all these other things that require lots and lots of processing power. Terminals. In the old days, you had a mainframe computer somewhere, and you had what we called dumb terminals. Dumb terminals meant the terminal didn't have any smarts. It didn't have a computer inside of it. It was just a display screen and a keyboard, and that was it. Nothing else. No processing. The processing was done through a wire to some other place where the machine was. It could be in the corner of the room. It could be in another building. Doesn't really matter. So dumb terminals. And you might think, well, shoot, that's just so old, and there's no way in heck that anyone's going to be using dumb terminals these days. Well, actually, with the resurgence of concern about security, that's not necessarily the case. There are situations where I have to have access for my employees and perhaps visiting people to be able to get to computers to do things. Yet, I want a physical barrier between that and where my machines are. So, giving them dumb terminals makes perfectly good sense. I mean, you're in the lobby of the office building, okay? You haven't really been seen by anyone yet. I don't want to be connected to my corporate LAN at that point. I certainly don't want to give them access to the server farm that's behind glass in some other part of the building. But if I give them a dumb terminal, then there's hardly anything they can do. And in fact, even if they stole the terminal, right, took it home and plugged it in, they wouldn't be able to get anywhere because there's no data stored on the terminal. Okay, so let's just continue. So another one is called a thin client. And a thin client is just a souped up version of a dumb terminal. The dumb terminals were typically text based and typically didn't have a mouse. Well, thin client computers have graphics just like what you're looking at now, and they have mouse and keyboard and speakers, just like a real computer, except the computer isn't there, it's someplace else. And so it'd be kind of cool. Think about a testing center where you have rows and rows and rows of computers, and so you have kids coming in to sit down and do tests, and they all get a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse and speakers and everything. And yet the machines are in the closet over in the corner. That'd be kind of cool. That way there's hardly anything that the kids could do to mess things up. Okay, and then they talk about the point of sale terminal. These are very specialized terminals. So if you're in retail and you're going to be checking out at the grocery store, and you have the self-checkout line where you scan through. And those are, of course, they're terminals of some sort. But they're very, very specialized terminals. We have, credit cards and, all those kinds of things. And along that same line is on page 114 to talk about the ATM. Oh, by the way, ATM is one of those cool acronyms where everyone says it wrong. They say, an ATM machine, but the M is machine. So what you're actually saying is automatic teller machine. Okay, ATM. So yeah, ATM is a specialized terminal, obviously. Okay, so the word kiosk, this is a cool term. Basically what it means is, once again, it's a specialized terminal designed to do one particular thing. Like, I'm at the airport and I want to do a self-check-in, so I go to a kiosk and I, scan my ticket or type in a ticket number, and it processes things and does all these things and allows me to get on the airplane. So those type of self-service kiosks are becoming more and more prevalent. And again, there are a type of terminal, if you consider that terminal. Okay, on page 116, they talk about cloud computing one more time. And the essence of cloud computing is I'm storing something or processing something. I'm doing some sort of a compute service, whatever that is. I'm processing my mail. I'm doing a weather model. I'm storing data. I'm storing files. I'm doing my accounts. All the things that are on the screen right now. Application, backup, and database, domain, file, all those things. but they're not run by me. I've hired that out. I've contracted that out to someone to provide me those services. And when I do that, I don't tell them, well, I want a Dell brand server, and it has to have this much disk space, and it has to have this much and this. No. I don't give them the details. I say, here are the services that I want, and they'll figure out how many servers it takes to do that, how much storage, how much RAM, how much processing power it takes to do that. You just give them the requirements, and then they do everything else. They farm it all out. And the idea is that I get to all that over the internet. And there's secure ways you can do that, so you don't have to worry about somebody snooping in on your conversation. So cloud computing refers to an environment of servers that house and provide access to resources, access through the internet. That's not half bad. Okay, page 117. They talk about mobile devices being smartphones. Yes. And their definition of smartphone is not bad. It says an internet-capable phone that usually has, calendar and appointments and address book and calculator and notepad. Most of them have touch screens. Instead of, in addition to a touch screen, you could have an on-screen keyboard. That'd be cool. You could have physical keyboards. You could have a keyboard that kind of flips out, perhaps. So on page 118, they show you a list of those. You have a phone that has a slide-out keyboard. They have all different kinds. The most prevalent ones today are just the on-screen keyboard. You might have to turn your phone sideways to get a better, and then you do your typing on the screen itself. Okay. Continuing on page 120, they talk about digital cameras. And again, digital camera it's a mobile device, although I've never really heard it called that before, that allows you to take photos and store photographs digitally. Okay. So I think most of you guys know that when you take a digital photograph, it stores it onto an itty-bitty little card that's inside of the camera. And now there's lots and lots of ways you can get that off and put it onto your computer. The most prevalent way is a cable. There'll be some sort of cable that comes with the camera. You plug it into the camera, you plug the other end of the computer wakes up and says, "Whoo, look, I see a camera. Would you like me to download those files?" And you go, "Sure." And so it copies them all. There are some newer ones that have wireless capabilities, so that basically all you have to do is turn the camera on and kind of get within range of your your home system, and it'll automatically transfer files. And there's lots of other ways, but the most prevalent is they're stored on cards, and then you use a cable or something similar to a cable to get the stuff off. Okay, page 122, they talk about portable media players, and again, years ago, this was top of the line stuff. You remember the Sony Walkman? Ooh, cool. A portable, cassette player. So these things are standalone media devices are not quite as prevalent now because most kids would prefer to have a full-blown smartphone rather than have a media player. Now I know some people that if like you're a jogger, right, and you want to be able to jog, and I don't want necessarily to carry my entire phone with me, so they have a itty bitty little iPod device that you can kind of clip onto your clothing and allow you to jog and carry your music with you. Okay. On page 124, we talk about electronic books again. Like the first viable one was the Amazon Kindle. Really cool device. It's been through hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but dozens of revisions over time. And now they're just like tablet computers that are just very, very good at display for reading. That's it. Kind of cool. Okay, this is probably a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.